What's up, family? Welcome to this episode of Stack Sats or Die Trying. This is the Bitcoin Only Show brought to you by the Hood. My name is Jimmy. I'm your host as always. And today we got another quick show, Bitcoin related show, obviously. Stack Sats or Die Trying. Want to send a special shout out to everybody who supports the show. I appreciate all the messages. This past week was crazy, man. My brother Corey is dealing with the results of Hurricane Beryl. So he didn't have any sort of power or anything down there in Houston. So we didn't do our Friday live or our Wednesday show. It was just a crazy week, man, with the Mother Nature. But Stack Sats is definitely back here this Monday. We'll try to get everything done this week. He still absolutely doesn't have power as I make this right now. And a lot of people in Houston are struggling because of that. So I want to send, my thoughts and prayers to everybody over there on that side of the country dealing with what they're dealing with. I'm here in sunny Philadelphia. Not dealing with that, man, but I just feel blessed. But I definitely, my thoughts and prayers are with everybody over there, man. Today's show, I want to talk about the fact that Bitcoin isn't going anywhere, man. And, as always, I get in my rants and tell you about how I come to the conclusion of what it is I'm going to talk about. So, within the real estate space, I've been doing a lot of business lately, and just some of the conversations I have, and a lot of it is because I tend to wear a lot of Stack Sats or Die Trying or Bitcoin type t-shirts when I'm out in the world doing my business, and it always opens up conversations. And one of the conversations was with a developer here in Philadelphia, and he's like, "Oh, you're still with that fad, huh?" And I'm like, Bitcoin really isn't going anywhere, beloved. Like, it's going to be here. So it's best that you figure out how to navigate in the world with Bitcoin. Like, the idea that it's a fad and everything. Like, I don't know how long this thing has to go before people realize that there is something there. The network has value. It has value. But I also came across a couple things, and as I lurk in the Bitcoin spaces, because I haven't been doing a lot of teaching lately in terms of Bitcoin or what have you. I've been heavy on my real estate game, but also looking at different ways within the stock options game to kind of get good at that. I shouldn't say get good at that. Been good at that. I ain't gonna lie, I am pretty good at that. But I always talk about the fight for simplicity. So I'm even trying to get more simplistic as it pertains to that sector of my portfolio overall. But I'm always in Bitcoin spaces lurking, trying to see what's new, what's changing with the technology, what the developers are working on, what are some of the arguments within the space, because believe you me, people within the Bitcoin space argue with each other more than those that don't even believe or understand Bitcoin. I'm going to stop saying people that don't believe. You know why? Because I don't think it's a matter of belief. I think it's a matter of understanding. Some people don't fully understand the technology or culture behind Bitcoin. So it's hard for them to embrace it because they don't have all the information. Because once you have all the information, I think it's almost impossible to not believe. That's a bar. Anyway, I want to share something with you, though. A couple things that I saw online, man. One is Senator Cynthia Loomis had made a comment on Fox News about, she was talking about CBDCs, right? So she was talking about the idea of not having those, right? So where you talk about the central bank digital currency and just her thoughts. And this is a sitting senator, by the way, saying this. So I want to make sure I share this. And if you are listening to the audio, I will make sure the audio is played so you can hear it as well. But this was one of our sitting senators having a conversation on Fox News, and I just thought this was interesting to hear someone in that powerful position say this. So here we go.
No central bank digital currency. I'm so happy about that because that's a means of surveillance of the American people. But we want to make sure people can have individual wallets for their Bitcoin so they have that sovereign over their own money. We know we want the US dollar to remain strong. And actually having Bitcoin in reserve can help the US dollar remain strong.
So a couple things about that, right? The one is she talks about sovereignty and everybody having their own wallet and having control over their own resources, that's a Bitcoin tenet, right? She didn't say crypto, she said Bitcoin, and that's for a reason. The other thing is she talks about the dollar remaining strong and having Bitcoin in reserve to help the dollar. That's a whole different way of thinking about it, because most of the time when you talk to people in the Bitcoin space, or just people in general, they think that, it's a competing currency and it's here to end the dollar, right? Her thing is, and I guess it's kind of like the way gold was used in the past, like, let's use Bitcoin to help strengthen the dollar. So that's a whole different way of looking at it. But I think my overall point is not really to pontificate about whether that's possible or impossible. But to see someone at that level of government and that level of power actually have these conversations, on a platform that's broadcast all over a country, I should say the world, um, this is more proof positive that it's not going anywhere. And the other thing that I noticed outside of the developer that struck this whole thought about it's not going anywhere is how many people within the real estate space actually do believe and had the same conclusion that I came to. Because again, as I've said several episodes, one of the reasons why I'm so confident is because my study of real estate and then realizing, man, this is just digital real estate. But the difference between this real estate and the other real estate is people don't even understand or fully grasp the value proposition here. So if I'm able to really embrace this value prop, I can put myself ahead of the curve. We always talk about buying Bitcoin as buying Manhattan real estate a couple hundred years ago, right? So that's the one thing. But so I was on Twitter. I come across someone else who's a real estate investor. As a matter of fact, let me share a couple of the thoughts that she shared because I, screenshot those as well to bring to the show because I also thought it was interesting. And this is a young lady. Like I said, when I come across people who share things that interesting to me, at least, I'll share it. Lindsay Stamp, she's someone who paid off over $100,000 in debt. Is an investor now. She invests in real estate, in the stock market, amongst other things. But she put up a post that I thought was interesting. She said, "My Bitcoin journey these last 9 months. Level 1, what's Bitcoin?" Then she got to level 2. Nah, Bitcoin is a scam. Then level 3, what resources should I read? Then she got to level 4. Okay, Bitcoin is intriguing. She said, then she got to level 5. Maybe I should take just a 1 to 2% hedge. Then she got to level 6. The government won't stop printing. Then she got to level 7. Why do I exchange my time for the same money they print constantly? Then she got to level 8. I don't own enough Bitcoin. Then she got to level 9. Should I sell my real estate to buy more? Level 10 is Bitcoin has no top because fiat is infinite. And she said, let's see what the next 9 levels bring, right? So the next 9 months, rather. Let's see what the next 9 bring. The reason I found this intriguing is because someone, articulated kind of my process as well. Someone coming from real estate, first, what is Bitcoin? I remember when I was introduced to Bitcoin by 2 folks. One was a gentleman that I do work in the data analytics field, and the other one was my brother Corey. And both of them were telling me from 2 different standpoints. Corey was talking about it as an investment, and the other person was talking about the technology and decentralization. And eventually I just, I jumped in, but the greatest part is the continuation of studying, which is why one of the things I want to articulate and communicate through this Stack Sats or Dot Trying podcast is don't just listen to the podcast, read, get involved, and learn, because once you learn, you'll start going through these different levels that Lindsay went through in the last 9 months. Because I got to the point where I was looking around the house like, why do I own any of this? Like, I should just have Bitcoin. Why do I have clothes? Like, give me 2 t-shirts, 2 pair of pants, and let me just get some Bitcoin. Like, you start to think about that because you start to see how the world works. You start to see how money works. You start to understand the idea of just printing money constantly. And in studying this space, it's given me a different perspective, even on tangible physical real estate, because then you start to understand, right? I grew up in the inner city Philadelphia, and neighborhoods have changed in the course of my life. Some of the best neighborhoods now were neighborhoods no one wanted to walk in when I was younger. And my idea of why that happened was based on my training in real estate textbooks. But then when I add that training with what I start to understand about constant money printing, a light bulb goes off, and you start to see why all assets accumulate value based upon printing and scarcity and such, which is why you got to be stacking sats or you got to die trying, right? So that's another thing. The other thing I want to share, which was also from Lindsay, which I thought was interesting, and again, she had a couple bars that she shared this past week that I was like, okay. And she's talking, because again, she comes from the real estate space. She said, Bitcoin has been the best performing asset 8 out of the last 11 years. And people who owned it didn't have to deal with ovens, toilets, or tenants not paying rent. And as someone who's invested in real estate, I like that about it. So this is for my real estate folks out there. Shout out to y'all, because a lot of y'all, watch our content on Buy the Hood, right? And I appreciate that. but I felt this on a spiritual level, right? Because the idea of dealing with ovens, toilets, tenants, I call it the triple T: tenants, toilets, and taxes. I don't want to deal with any of those T's. Tenants, toilets, and taxes, you can keep them. But I understand the reason you deal with those is because of the wealth that it helps you create. But what if there's something else, right? What if there's something else that's also real estate that you don't deal with any of that? That's the question I've been constantly asking myself. And even as I work in the real estate space, Bitcoin keeps me questioning everything. I'm working on a development project now where I'm building some homes from the ground up. And the idea is to sell those homes. But Bitcoin is constantly in my mind. Should I just sell the development site and buy sats? Once I'm done, and go through the process of developing it and selling it, how much of that do I put into sats? So Bitcoin kind of makes me question every other financial instrument that I use. And it's not that I don't use other financial instruments. I've been very transparent about, 90% of my portfolio, single family residential real estate, Bitcoin, and the S&P 500. You know what I'm saying? It's not that I don't have small things here and there outside of that, but that's the majority of my portfolio. But Bitcoin makes me question all that. It makes me question the S&P 500. It makes me question everything because Bitcoin isn't going anywhere, which is what this show is about. And when you truly, truly understand it and you truly see it for what it's worth, you have to question everything. You have to start asking, should my money be allocated here? Now, I wanted to make sure I share those things. Specifically, Senator Loomis talking about the idea of sovereignty and how she doesn't believe in CBDCs, but she's thinking about Bitcoin being used as a way to make the dollar stronger. I think that's an interesting thought that, I want to put more thought into it myself. Like, how would that work? What does that look like? But the overall idea is this thing isn't going anywhere, man. Like, if you just look up Google searches for Bitcoin, you recognize it's not going anywhere. If you just go on any of your social media sites and look up Bitcoin, it's not going anywhere. But you have to have a good understanding of how this thing works, how to protect yourself, and why you should be allocating, even if you haven't made it to level 10, like Lindsay had, get to the level she was where she says 1% to 2%. Because what happens to Bitcoin if the trillions and trillions of dollars that are out there in assets flows into Bitcoin? See, this is the thing that people don't understand. When you look at all the various asset classes, whether we're talking about art, whether we're talking about bonds, whether we're talking about the stock market, whether we're talking about real estate, Bitcoin is still very, very small. It's still early, right? Real estate has over $12 trillion tied up in it. Bitcoin is about $1 trillion. We're next to, matter of fact, I think real estate is more than that. So I haven't looked at it in a while. But there's trillions of dollars in real estate. So don't quote me on that 12. I'm not sure if that's, matter of fact, let me grab my phone because we can always look this up as I talk. It's trillions of dollars, though. I do know that tied up in the property. It's trillions of dollars tied up into the stock market. So Bitcoin only has 1 trillion tied up. So the fact is, what if everyone who allocates money to grow starts to put the 1% to 2%? What happens? It's sky is the limit, right? It's infinite, as Lindsay said, right? It's infinite as Lindsay said. Here's something interesting I'm looking at. It talks about people tying up in housing. I'm looking at this one study. It says Americans allocate 70% of their net worth to real estate on average. Although financial advisors recommend between 25 and 40. So that, I don't have the total trillion tied up in real estate, but that is interesting of how much money is tied up. And by the way, I'm looking at multiple studies that had that same number. So that's interesting in itself, because what happens if you start to kind of a little shift happens. Now, the thing about physical real estate is I do believe, and I'm one of these people who believe this, although, a lot of people in Bitcoin feel like Bitcoin is going to suck up all the real estate value. I don't think that will ever happen for a lot of reasons. One being the head start, 2 being the ability to have shelter, and 3 being the fact that land, you can grow food. So there's always going to be a need for land, right? But Bitcoin, because it's decentralized, because it's censorship resistant, it's going to be a need for that forever too. And because of that, Satoshis, Bitcoin, sats aren't going anywhere. So you can continue to ignore it if you want. And I know if you're watching this, you're not one who ignores it. Or if you're listening to this and in your car, you're not one who ignores it. But should you be doing more? Should you be stacking more? Right? Should you be allocating more of the money that you put to work into this? Should you buy iBit? Should you buy Sats? Like, we got plenty of episodes talking about my thoughts on each. But the thing is, you got to do something as it pertains to this space. You can't ignore this space because it's not going anywhere. When you have people at the highest levels of government having these conversations, that's in the public. So in the private, that it's already going down, right? So, I mean, the fact of the matter is, it's a reason why I talked about this in previous episodes. Many people believe that the people who will be the tycoons of the future are the ones who are stacking sats now, because money printing is infinite. And as long as they continue to print money to pull off some of the things that they do, we have an election going on. And you have one party promising to do this, another party promising to do that. Here's what I'll tell you. No matter what party wins and no matter what party tries to put their platform forward, guess what they're going to have to do? Money printer go burr. They're going to have to print. And as they print, this is what Bitcoin protects you from. So, fact of the matter is, I'm not one of these people that say voting doesn't matter. I'm not one of these people who are anti-politics. I've talked about politics and why it plays an important part of the economy. But what I do know is they all going to print. And when they print, we protect ourselves by stacking sats. Anyway, man, leave me some feedback. Let me know what you think about my thoughts on this episode about Bitcoin not going anywhere. Let me know what you think about politicians talking about this on all kinds of platforms like that. Do all the YouTubian stuff, like, share, comment, subscribe. What do you think about real estate investors, right? On both sides. Some saying, leave that alone, stick with the land. It's a funny thing about real estate investors, and I'll say this before I get out of here. You have two types. You have some who are real estate investors and some people who are investors who invest in real estate. There's a difference. My hardcore real estate investors don't touch the stock market. They don't touch bonds. They don't touch crypto. They don't touch art. They don't touch anything. And I know a lot of them like that. One of the most successful real estate investors that I've had the privilege of talking to and spending time with is a gentleman who's worth a couple $100 million. And he told me one time, listen, I don't have one penny in the stock market because I feel like a CEO can make a comment and take away my money. All my money is in property, right? So you have those hardcore types who don't believe in anything but land. Then on the flip side, I know people who are investors. They will invest in anything. You tell them that, string, you can buy string at one price and use arbitrage and sell it at another. They will invest in string, right? They are investors. So you have hardcore real estate investors and you have investors, right? And it's like that with the stock market too. There are a lot of people in the stock market who don't care about land, don't want to do anything with land. All they want to do is own stock. And that's cool. Shout out to all y'all, because the fact of the matter is you got to be doing something, right? Even if I don't agree with whatever you're doing, I still want you to do something. Do something, because investing in 2024 is about survival. It's not about just getting rich. Anyway, like I said, do all the YouTubing and stuff. Give me some feedback. Hit the comments. Let me know what you think. Send some prayers and shout outs to everybody in Houston, including my brother Core, because, man, it's crazy out there. He's been sending me like pictures and videos and cars underwater. Property flying all around. He sent me a joint a couple days ago. It was like 100-mile-an-hour winds going. This was like a week ago. Yeah, so it's been madness over there, man. But, so send a prayer and a shout out to everybody there, man. I appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Camp is going amazing. We've had 2 weeks of camp thus far. Next Saturday is week 3 of our By the Hood ownership camp. Camp number 10 has been a successful one, man. Some great, bright minds in our camp, and I'm excited about the future. So with that being said, remember, support By the Hood, but always stack sats or die trying. Peace.